Right, hello, welcome to Windsor, a sunny Windsor, which is nice because the Queen's out and about today, and that's why we're here. Nice to be back.
Lovely to be back. It's like a second home, Windsor.
Second home, because we were here for royal weddings and we were here for royal babies, and some news that we'll bring you during the course of this podcast about another royal wedding today. Stay tuned for that one. It's taken us as much by surprise as everybody else, but we're here. We're close to the Queen, who's just in there, not far from Prince Andrew actually. He's just at Royal Lodge down the way. So it's a good place to be today, but obviously we're here for the knighthood of Sir Captain Tom Moore, who has raised, what now, 33 billion zillion pounds?
£33 million for NHS charities,
yes.
Which is really remarkable.
Which is bringing the Queen out of her own lockdown.
It is, yes.
And potentially she was already busy today with her granddaughter's wedding. More on that to come. So we start with your rundown then.
Royal rundown.
A royal rundown. A busy old week, quite a varied week, shall we say?
A varied week.
Oh, it's also Camilla's birthday today, so look, we're in it's
you are definitely
royal
stealing
mode.
My thunder.
Let's go.
I'm going to do my royal rundown.
Go.
As you say, we are in Windsor today for Captain Tom, who is going to be knighted officially by the Queen. The Queen has had a busy week. She took part in a video call with members of the armed forces from around the world in only her second virtual official engagement that we've seen. Meghan made a fairly major speech this week at the Girl Up Summit. That was again another virtual engagement.
Another video call.
Ghislaine Maxwell was in court.
Another video call.
Another video call. There was a new photo for Camilla's 73rd birthday, which is today. And Kate was joined by Andy Murray on a, guess what?
Zoom call?
Video call to mark the final weekend of Wimbledon, which should have been last weekend. And then we have two very lovely sort of finalies this week. The first is the little word search chap. He sent a word search to the Queen to cheer her up. And the second is Buckingham Palace's very own gin.
Very own gin, which I've yet to sample, but I do have one to sample.
Well, lucky you.
Obviously, the best place to begin is Captain Moore, and we've spoken a lot about video calls, but he's actually here in person, and the Queen's here in person today. She's breaking her own lockdown. She's going to come out into the quadrangle of Windsor Castle. Some building work going on over there, in case you can hear it on the microphone. And Captain Tom is going to get his knighthood. So
he is. So this was announced by Downing Street earlier this year that he will receive a knighthood for all his amazing charity work, walking laps of his garden to raise money for NHS charities.
He was meant to raise £1,000. That was his initial target.
I mean,
he's now raised 33 million.
Well and truly smashed that.
Yes.
Close to 33 million. And as you say, the investiture ceremony is all outside. It's being held within the confines of the castle in the quadrangle, which is where the Queen's
had her official
birthday, and also the picture of the Queen and the Duke of Edinburgh to mark his 99th birthday.
And all obviously socially distant. I should point out that we're sort of socially distant. We've measured about 1 metre between us here, and we've got this sort of, what we actually need is a piece of perspex here, which we don't. But we're outside, and we've got the metres distance, and we will continue to remain that way. I mean, we're doing this slightly ahead of Captain Tom's investiture, but by the magic of television and editing and all the rest of it, we can show you some pictures of what happened at that investiture in the quadrangle today with the Queen. So here he is.
Where the Queen used the sword that belonged to her father, King George VI.
Yes. And Captain Tom, by all accounts, because we saw him leaving home this morning, didn't we?
We filmed him leaving
off from home.
Setting off to come down to Windsor Castle. And I mean, it's really special as you say, the Queen is essentially coming out of her own bubble and lockdown.
Because all other investitures, be they at Buckingham Palace, be they at the ones that were planned at the Palace of Holyrood House in Edinburgh, they were all cancelled for coronavirus. There'll be none since March. None at all. So I think they're making a real exception for Captain Tom. Obviously, he did the great gesture of raising all that money for the NHS. Worldwide attention, actually, because it always amazes me about how people in America have picked this up, people in Australia picked this up. So he's a sort of an international celebrity now.
He's an international star, and he's 100. I mean, this is
worthy of the Queen at 94, coming out of her own lockdown to come and knight him this afternoon here in Windsor.
Apparently, this is the first time he's left home in a month. So it's a special, very special day for
Yes.
everybody.
Yes. It's not as if you said to the Majesty, "Sorry, I'm a bit busy that day." Wonderful news on Captain Tom, and that's obviously why we are here. We will also bring you some more news about Princess Beatrice. The reason I'm being slightly cagey about it is because as we pressed record on the camera, the news kind of broke. So as the podcast continues, we hopefully will get more news, and then we'll be able to tell you some more about it at the very end. Now it's interesting. The Queen did she's doing this engagement in person, but she's also been back on Zoom. As we've all been on Zoom, this is the second time we've seen the Queen on Zoom, and she had quite a good laugh on Zoom this time.
I mean, the Queen on Zoom.
I call it a cackle on.
One of my favourite, probably my favourite moment of the week. I mean, seeing her on Zoom she's really nailed it, hasn't she?
I think she really enjoyed herself this time. Last time she felt like it's all a bit new. What is this screen thing to which I am talking?
We actually heard quite a bit more from her.
Yes, much more, didn't we?
Call. Yeah. So she was speaking to Chief of the Defence Staff and 3 service personnel who are all based around the world.
One from the Royal Navy, one from the Army, and one from the Royal Air Force. And it was the Air Force chap that made the Queen laugh. So the Royal Navy rating spoke to the Queen from RFA Argus, which is a Royal Fleet auxiliary ship based in the Caribbean. Amazing that the technology worked from the Caribbean to Windsor Castle in any case. A chap from the British Army spoke to her from Mali about the work he's doing there. But the thing that made the Queen chuckle was the RAF guy who is actually a sniper. He's a trained sniper. But what does he do in his spare time? Well, as he told the Queen, he's the pilot for the Jamaican bobsleigh team.
So I'm the pilot for the Jamaican bobsleigh team.
Gosh, sounds a very dangerous job.
It can be quite dangerous, but we try to mitigate any sort of danger. And being professional athletes, we tend to keep it on full run as best as we can.
So how do you train?
So during the lockdown, unfortunately, with all the gyms and everything closed, we had to sort of resort to unorthodox sort of training methods. So I've been pushing a car up and down the street. I've had to make a gym.
Well, I suppose that's one way to train.
Yeah, so that's definitely one way to train, Mum.
So if he wants to come down here, there's plenty of cars that he can push and show the Queen how he does it in person. But I mean, I call this thing a cackle on social media, which some people said to me was a bit disrespectful, but it kind of was a very natural sort of laugh that caught the Queen by surprise.
I mean, it was great, very cool runnings.
Yes,
I wonder if she's seen cool runnings.
Well, we wonder whether someone sent her the video, that Jamaican bobsleigh team, because obviously Jamaica's not known for its snow, not known for its bobsleigh runs, and how else do you do it in lockdown other than pushing a car? Now, he said to the Queen that he wants to compete, apparently in the Winter Olympics in 2022. So look out for him. If you see him and the cheering on the Jamaican team, you can bet your bottom dollar the Queen will be doing it as well.
It was lovely, wasn't it? But the thing that always amazes me about the Queen on those calls is how well informed she is about everybody that she's speaking to. She asks really informed questions. She seems to have really read up on them. And Abel rates Sophie Levy she had met in 2014 at Hollyport.
That's right, yes.
That, and it always impresses me about the Queen, just sort of an absolute pro she is.
So Camilla's birthday. Now Camilla was out and about this week, wasn't she? But she had a photo taken by Chris Jackson, the royal photographer who works for Getty Images. Here's a picture of Camilla on her 73rd birthday. So happy birthday to her.
It's taken in the garden at Clarence House, and I thought it was a really lovely picture of her. That he really did a great job. She looks.
A lot of people are quite surprised when you say she's 73. I mean, I was trying to find a polite way of saying she looks good for her age, and that's not what I'm saying here. I think basically people say to me, how old is Camilla? When you say 73 as she is now, they are generally quite surprised.
I think she looks great for 73. And the work rate of both Camilla and the Prince of Wales is remarkable, really.
Yeah. And as Camilla herself will note, she wasn't really a working mum, as it were. She was a mother. She brought up 2 children, but her workload has increased dramatically since she married the Prince of Wales and became a full-time working member of the royal family. And she's been out and about this week as well.
She has, yes. And so has the Duchess of Sussex.
The Duchess of Sussex. Now, we get to a point in the podcast every week where we have to mention Meghan or Harry, because normally they do something newsworthy. Now, my goodness, on social media this debate goes on. Why are you still covering Harry and Meghan when they're not royal? They're still members of the royal family. She's still the Duchess of Sussex. She has her HRH title, although she doesn't use it anymore. And they continue to make news.
They do, yes.
As they did again this week.
So this week, Meghan made I think this was a fairly significant speech of her. We've heard from her, recently during the lockdown. She spoke very passionately about Black Lives Matter, but this was a proper speech she gave to the Girl Up Summit, which was a virtual summit for girls and women aged between sort of 13 and 22. 40,000 attendees across 172 countries, and Meghan addressed them all with quite a passionate speech, and something we know she is very, very cares very deeply about, which is female empowerment.
Yes. And as also, she was challenging, she wants the speed of change to happen. She was encouraging young girls to not be intimidated by those in authority, be they politicians, be they chief executives of business, but to continue to make change happen. Here's a segment of what Meghan said, again on a Zoom call, again we presume, although we don't know for sure, from the Californian, should we call it house or large house?
Mansion.
Large house, where her and Harry are living, and this is a part of what Meghan had to say to the Girl Up Summit.
I want to share something with you. It's that those in the halls and corridors and places of power, from lawmakers to world leaders to executives, all of those people, they depend on you more than you will ever depend on them. And they know this. They know that all of you at a younger age than any modern comparison are setting the tone for an equitable humanity, not figuratively, literally. This is a humanity that desperately needs you. To push it, to push us forcefully in a more inclusive, more just, and more empathetic direction, and to not only frame the debate, but to be in charge of the debate. On racial justice, on gender, climate change, mental health and well-being, on civic engagement, on public service, on so much more. That's the work that you are already out there doing. Look, sometimes it's not obvious what to do. And often it's fear that paralyzes us and stops us from being brave and being bold. But don't underestimate that you have some of those answers within. Don't underestimate your ability to push through the fear. You have, rooted in your convictions, the ability to craft a world that you know is just and kind. And your gut will tell you what's right and what's wrong, what's fair and what's unfair. The hardest part, and it was the hardest part for me, is to chase your convictions with action. You look at the breadth of the issues we're facing right now, it is easy to get overwhelmed. I understand. So be where you are. The growth and the change that you're pursuing might not feel like anything day to day. But when you look back, I promise, you will see that it all adds up. We make better communities and a better world for ourselves, step by step. And the pace of those steps is getting quicker. It's in looking at the aggregate, looking at the big picture, that you can see how far we've progressed. I am extraordinarily proud of what you've already accomplished. Please continue to honor the conviction and the compassion that's awoken within you. I will be cheering you on, so will my husband, so will Archie, as you all continue marching, advocating, and leading the way forward.
So yes, again, I mean, a lot of people say this was the most significant speech she's made since leaving the royal family. I mean, she's made a few, but this was probably her longest and most in-depth speech, would you say?
Yeah, and I thought there was one quite interesting bit where she talks about the hardest part, and it was the hardest part for me, chase your convictions with action.
So, suggesting that she might not have been able to do that in the royal family,
or suggesting that she did chase her convictions with action
in leaving.
In leaving.
Yeah,
possibly.
I mean, you can read lots of things into
I'm trying to interpret
her words, of course. But again, I thought it was, definitely one of Meghan's longer speeches, and one that sort of gave you an insight into into her new world and what she plans to take on. And obviously we know that her and Harry are now going to focus a lot on Black Lives Matter, the movement that's been created after the death of George Floyd. We know they also want to focus on helping where they can with the coronavirus pandemic, and the whole Archie World thing is just on pause while they do that. But don't be surprised if we'll be talking about Meghan and or Harry again next week.
And it does show, talking to 40,000 young people about something she cares about. She does have a real platform.
Yeah, and a lot of people say that she has that. Yeah, she's got the ability to make people change, and she uses that platform to great effect.
And this summit, attracted some really big names. There was Michelle Obama, Hillary Clinton, the Duchess of Sussex.
Yes,
it was a no small matter.
And you wonder actually whether, with Michelle Obama, Hillary Clinton, you wonder whether Meghan is going to sort of find her path to speak about more controversial things now she's no longer in the royal family. So, talk about maybe more openly criticising the current situation or something in a way in which she couldn't have done before because she was constrained by her position in the royal family. So we watched that one with interest. The other one we've been watching with interest, of course, is Ghislaine Maxwell. We did a lot on this last week and the week before. Again, a lot of people say to us, why are you focusing on Meghan, not on Ghislaine? We cover the news as and when it happens, and we give it all as much attention as it deserves. And what deserves our attention this week is Ghislaine Maxwell's appearance in court. Not physically in court, again it was another Zoom call of all things, but since her arrest she's been held at the Manhattan District Jail, effectively, from where she's been told she has to stay until her trial date next year.
July 12th, 2021 it's predicted to be, so that's quite some way off. And yes, they denied her bail. It was argued that she was a flight risk. Because
she has a British passport, an American passport, a French passport. The other concern raised in the court, wasn't it, that in France the extradition treaty doesn't exist with the US. You could actually go to France and not therefore be forced to be returned to the United States. And for all those reasons and many more, and the fact that she's got a lot of connections, she's managed to evade the authorities for a good time now, that she was, as they called it, an extreme flight risk. So they weren't prepared to let her out of jail.
And we should just say that Prince Andrew wasn't mentioned at all in the hearing, but his association with Ghislaine, his association with Epstein, it must have been uncomfortable reading for him.
And you wonder, given that they were very, very good friends, and then we don't have anything to suggest he did, but you do wonder whether or not he was watching or listening into the proceedings as well. Because actually, you were trying to dial in, weren't you, to the proceedings, and there were something like 500 or 1,000 available phone lines into court, and it was very difficult to get in.
But we eventually got in, didn't we? So
yes, and had a good listen, and actually heard, therefore, Ghislaine Maxwell pleads not guilty to the 6 counts that she's been charged with by the FBI, but denied bail, and therefore will remain in prison for a good year. So that if the trial happens, and who knows whether it will be just on these 6 charges, whether there'll be further charges, but if the trial happens, it will be in July of next year, so a year to wait.
35 years in prison, found guilty.
I don't know how you move from Ghislaine Maxwell to gin. There's no easy way. I'm not going to, you won't get gin in jail, obviously. No. I'm not going to attempt a segue here, so let's just talk about gin, shall we? Gin, a new bottle, produced by Buckingham Palace and infused, if you know anything about gin, with many plants that grow in the gardens of Buckingham Palace. Now this has got sort of success written all over it. I mean, everyone loves gin at the moment. It's really, really popular.
Everyone loves Buckingham Palace and the Queen.
And the fact is you're drinking an alcoholic drink that has been infused by the plants in Buckingham Palace. I mean, what's not to like?
What's not to like? And you've got a little sample.
I have a very small sample. It's smaller than my coffee. It's about that big, the sample that came in. But I have to say, it came in a box about this big from the Royal Collection Trust. Now, we should mention them here. The Royal Collection Trust is a charity. Funny enough, when you go and pay for a ticket to look around this place, Windsor Castle, that money goes towards the Royal Collection Trust, and the charity raises funds to basically look after the one of the biggest art collections in the world. And they've had a massive drop in revenue because of there's no visitors. Windsor Castle's been closed. The other palaces that they operate. Buckingham Palace has been closed. We told you last week it's all due to reopen on July the 23rd. Nevertheless, if you buy the gin, it's going to help this particular charity. It doesn't go to the Queen's coffers. It won't help the Queen live a more extravagant lifestyle or whatever people might say on social media, but it will help this particular charity. So
I don't know what the gin's like, but the bottle is very pretty.
yes. So here's a picture of it that Buckingham Palace put out. Actually, a few pictures. Why don't you run through them? There's a lovely picture. You can only see this, obviously, if you're watching on YouTube. If you're listening on a podcast, just go onto our social media pages, ITV News Royals on Twitter, on Instagram. It's all over there.
And you can buy this from lots of people are asking us this.
Where you can buy it from?
Social media. You can buy it from the Royal Collection Trust's website, their shop.
Yes. So there was a picture in front of Buckingham Palace where they laid the table, they got the lemons out and the glass and all the rest of it. There was also a picture up against some sort of mulberry bush or something that is infused by. There was another picture inside, and then there is a picture that I'll put up on social media later of my gin bottle that I've got, which I might just drink this weekend. I'm trying to work out if there's one measure or two in there, but it's not much more than that.
I think it's only one.
One measure. There we are. But a plug for the gin, but actually I think it's quite a neat idea, whoever had that idea, to infuse it with the flowers and plants from Buckingham Palace. And another quite nice way to end is on the Queen's ability to keep herself amused.
I love this story. This is really sweet. So a little chap called Timothy Madders, he is 7 years old and he's from Essex. He has, during lockdown, he was making word searches to cheer people up who were perhaps feeling sad or lonely, and he sent one of these word searches, a happiness word search, to the Queen, writing her a letter saying you might be feeling sad or lonely, and the Queen received it and instructed her lady in waiting to write back to Timothy, and he received a letter saying how much his thoughtfulness was appreciated, and we spoke to him this week.
The word search is a happiness word search, and I thought that the happiness might cheer her up, so that's why.
Were you worried she might be a bit bored in lockdown and may need something to do?
Yeah, I was getting a bit worried that she might, because she's someone who runs the country and stuff, so she needs to be happy and good.
And tell me about the other letter you've got there. What does that say?
So it's actually from the Queen, because she likes it so much she asked one of her ladies in waiting to write back to me. The Queen wishes me to write and thank you for your kind letter and for the puzzle you have created especially for Her Majesty.
And how do you feel about getting that?
Well, I was a bit shocked at first when I saw it, and it makes me really happy and pleased. It means she's enjoyed it and liked it so much.
It's lovely that he's actually got a reply. It's not every day you get post, but let alone from the Queen.
And you wonder in that word search whether you had the word wedding.
You can tell you've been teaching little people for the last 4 months.
A wedding. And you probably saw that I was checking my phone throughout this recording. If you're watching on YouTube, if you were listening to it as a podcast, you wouldn't have seen that at all. However, in the course of this recording, we've established A, Princess Beatrice has got married. B, she married her fiancé Eduardo Mapelli Mozzi. I always struggle with that one. C, the Queen and the Duke of Edinburgh were there, also Prince Andrew. We're just checking whether the Duchess of York, Sarah Ferguson, was there. We imagine she would be. She'd be the mother of the bride. And any other details we've got, have we? No?
No, but this was postponed from May the 29th when they were due to marry at St James's Palace and have that reception at Buckingham Palace, and obviously that couldn't go ahead because of coronavirus, so it's really lovely that they've been able to get married today.
I think a lot of people will say any wedding, any marriage, especially at this time of year, is it's just great news.
Yeah.
I imagine that everyone had to sit in St George's Chapel socially distantly. It wouldn't have been anywhere near as busy as the one that Harry and Meghan carried out here 2 years ago.
Yeah, wow, that was big.
Blimey, there were crowds. They were trotting down actually just over here, weren't they? They were trotting down on their carriage along here and up and round and all the rest of it. But anyway, different times, different people, different events, but another royal wedding today. So congratulations.
Maybe we'll get a photograph.
Well, if you've got a photograph, we'll slap it on the podcast about here right now. Beatrice, whatever we get, it will be sort of on the podcast about this time. I won't talk to it because I haven't yet seen it, but hopefully you'll be better informed than I am currently if and when you listen to this. thank you so much for being with us here in Windsor today. Slightly different, not just the location, but the breaking news.
And the sunshine, that's slightly different from the last few
and
days.
Obviously, you'll be able to catch up on all the Captain Tom news on our social media. Continue to subscribe to us. So remember, you get this podcast on YouTube if you want to watch it, but it's also on Apple Podcasts, it's on Spotify, and we appreciate each and every one of your views. There's also a plane in the sky, which is quite unusual because normally you get one every 7 seconds over Windsor.
Yeah, they are very frequent and very loud here.
Yes, but obviously that's something that doesn't happen very much anymore as well. But anyway, we digress. Weddings, Zoom calls, court appearances, knighthoods,
word searches,
birthdays.
gin. We've done the lot.
See you next week.
See you next week.